You're listening to episode 81 of the Play Therapy Community Podcast.
Like so much of this, of being in the storm for us as therapists, I mean, really what we're talking about is vicarious trauma.
Mm.
And we have like that's a piece of self-care that we sometimes forget that we need to acknowledge and honor
Oh my
in the
gosh,
work that
yes.
we do, because so much of what we're doing, and especially, the last 2 years that we've been doing this, is like we're like holding all the stories in the worlds of the clients that we see and the communities that we work in,
Mhm.
while juggling and trying to balance our own stories and our own families and our own children, let alone ourselves.
Welcome to Play Therapy Community Podcast, providing connection, information, and inspiration to child therapists all around the world. Here's your host, a licensed psychotherapist, a registered play therapist, and my mom, Jackie Flynn.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Play Therapy Community Podcast. I love meeting with you like this. Well, I'm especially excited about today's episode. It is with three women that inspire me beyond measure: Lisa Dion, Jen Taylor, and Claire Millington. They are play therapy powerhouses, and they are gurus when it comes to wellness, regulating ourselves so that we can then show up in a more optimal state for our clients. This episode is all about keeping ourselves well. So, Lisa Dion, you may remember her from previous episodes and a gazillion other places. She is the creator of Synergetic Play Therapy. She's a huge inspiration to me. I've invited her on the podcast, a symposium. Any chance I get to work with Lisa, I grab it. I also sought out some business coaching with her. She's incredible. Jen Taylor. Jen Taylor puts on the most magnificent events. She has like an electricity, a charisma to her that you can just feel it. You'll hear it when she speaks in this episode. She's really good at creating learning opportunities for clinicians to just really be able to do better at the work that we do. I love her work. So, also on this episode is Claire Millington. All three of these ladies together are just so fun. I can't wait for you to hear it. She is a guru when it comes to attachment based play therapy, and she's just so much fun. Oh my goodness. I got to meet all three of these ladies at the Association for Play Therapy conference. At the time of this recording, we're in 2021, and it was held in Little Rock, Arkansas. It was so much fun. Claire invited my daughter and I to go shopping with her at the thrift store. So we practiced some play therapy techniques there, specifically something that I had recently learned through the Oaklander model training. And it was just so hilarious. If you haven't joined our Facebook group, Play Therapy Community, yet, be sure you do. You can see the video from that thrift store visit where we practiced that. We recorded it. It was hilarious. All right, so I won't keep you much longer. Let's dive right into this episode with Lisa Dion, Jen Taylor, and Claire Millington. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us in an episode of the Play Therapy Community Podcast. I am crazy excited to be bringing Lisa Dion, Jen Taylor, and Claire Mellton to you today with some tips on how to stay well as a child therapist. The work that we do is incredibly rewarding, and it can be really difficult sometimes too. And our wellness is important not only for us to be effective and efficient as child therapists, but also to be able to continue to be there for ourselves and for our friends and families. So they have an upcoming event. It is in San Diego, which sounds amazing. It's called Anchoring in the Storm, Using Community and Connection to Reflect, Connect, and Build. Oh, I could even feel that just reading it. So if the title is that good, I can't even imagine what the event is like. But today, Lisa is going to start off. They each have a tip that they're going to share with us, something that we can do right away to keep ourselves well. All right, Lisa, you're up.
Thanks, Jackie. So my tip is actually more of a mindset, which I think is an important mindset for play therapists to switch into, because so often we think about self-care as this thing that we do like in the morning before we go to work, or at the end of the day when we finish work, or we wait for the weekend, or we count down the days until we can take our vacation, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And yes, that's important, absolutely. But for me, when we're talking about doing ongoing work with clients, to me, self-care is actually a quality of an ongoing relationship we have with ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's throughout the whole day. So there are different things to do. I know that Jen and Claire are going to talk about some really important and powerful ones. And the part that I want to add in is that we can't neglect an ongoing curiosity and check-in with ourselves. So an ongoing, like, how am I? How am I really? What's going on in my nervous system? Do I need to take an extra 5 minutes? Do I need to get a drink of water? Am I pushing too hard? Am I pushing too fast? Because I think that when we talk about self-care, that part often gets run over. Mm-hmm. We forget that so much of it is really about the quality of our own relationship. So that's what I'm going to actually offer up as my tip here in this conversation is, how often are you stopping throughout the day and actually checking in with yourself? How often are you regulating throughout the day, whether that's just even a stretch? Sometimes we think that self-care also has to be like 30 minutes long. It can be 30 seconds long. Mm-hmm. A deeper breath, a stretch, a glass of water, mindfully walking down the hallway, shaking it out, whatever our body needs. But it's an ongoing journey of, how am I? How am I really? What's my body need in this moment? How do I tune to myself? To me, that's the essence of true self-care and well-being, is the ongoing relationship.
It's
That's
so
what
good.
I want to offer. That's what I want to offer, is that shift in mindset. It's not something that happens before we start the day or the end of the day. It can be, but what's going on throughout the day too.
Oh, that's so good. It's like a way of being. I have literally learned more about that from you than any person on the planet. It really started with that aggression and play therapy book that was incredible. It's like this concept of, I'm not just here for the client, we're here together. And I remember when we talked about it, you talked about even like scheduling time in between sessions, taking a walk to the bathroom, get a drink of water. And it makes me think back to like when I first had my child. I was like, I don't really matter anymore. I have this amazing human being in the world. I don't really need anything. Gosh, that couldn't be further from the truth. So good. And I know too, Lisa, one thing that I think about, and I don't know if it's related to the way that you were describing it, but I recently reached out to you for business coaching. And the purpose of that was to become like a more efficient entrepreneur. I have been in like Dr. Karen Fried's training, and she says, if somebody really inspires you, reach out to them and see if you can learn from them. So right in her training, here I am emailing you, but I am getting so much more than just the, it makes me kind of emotional thinking about it, than just the business piece. I feel like I'm becoming more true to myself, the authenticity. So I think of that as self-care too. It's not only showed up in my business, which it has showed up in my business, which is crazy. I can't wait to tell you about it, but it's showed up in my life. It showed up in the way that I parent, the way that, I like go out with my friends now, which before it wasn't a priority. So
Jackie, the essence of what you're talking about is what we're after in San Diego, is a time for the individuals that are going to be with us to really reflect on who they are and what's true for them, and to walk away with a deeper, authentic, congruent experience, because that is ultimately the essence of self-care. So that's a huge part of why we created what we're creating in February.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Hey, can you give me a visual? Because I'm looking at 3 of my like favorite people ever. Can you give me a visual of like what kind of stuff you guys gonna do there?
Jen, you want to jump in?
Yeah. Well, that piece that Lisa was just talking about, as far as taking care of your body, taking care of yourself, regulating through the stress, there's definitely going to be that part there. And then Claire's bringing all the expressive arts types of things, the relationships that we have with other people and how we use those attachments to really help us connect and get through these stressful times. And then I offer that reflective piece, which we're doing through a lot of journal therapy and therapeutic writing. Be able to help people to process the thoughts that are happening in their head, and then have conversations with people in a space together, so we can really start to sort out what we've learned over these challenges, how we can be grateful for the things that were difficult, and how we can really look for the ways that we're going to move forward in the future, not only as individuals, but as a collective group of therapists as well.
Oh, gosh, that's good. It's like the power of the togetherness. I even think about like Lisa explained the word synergy to me one time. It seems like a synergy together. Oh, that's amazing. Hey, Claire, are you bringing balloons? Are you going to do balloons? I don't know why I associate you with balloons.
Have balloons, right? It just makes you feel better.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be so fun. All right, so let's go with tip 2. Jen, what's your tip?
Okay, so Lisa talked a lot about regulating the body, and I'm talking more about regulating the brain, and getting out of our heads and getting our thoughts down onto paper through the journal, which is really a great tool to help people to manage stress. That when we think about things all day long, we often don't make a whole lot of progress on processing them. But when you're actually writing those things down in your journal or in a reflective piece, then suddenly you get all these magic wands that come out that tell you, here's exactly what I need to be doing next, or here's this great idea that I have. And then when you combine that with that processing piece of us being in small groups and being in a community of people who are all going there in that same way, really transform the way that you're able to craft a narrative about the experience that we've had and be able to use that information to move forward. So when it comes to wellness or managing stress for therapists, what I'm bringing really is this piece of how you can take all the stuff that's happening in your daily life, use the journal to help you process it, and how you can find other people to talk about those things with, so that you can really get some of the wisdom that comes from that reflective piece.
Oh, how valuable too. It seems like something that a practice that you could take back to your daily life. And there's some neuroscience behind that too, right? Like lighten up the language centers in the left side of the brain when you're have that felt sense. And getting stuff done.
Journaling can be very meditative. And like Lisa was saying, when you're talking about wellness, this is a mindset of something that you're doing throughout the day, throughout the week on a regular basis. But this is not an hour a day. This is 5-minute sprint of journaling. This is a couple of prompts throughout the day, like ways that you can really check in. Again, what do I need? How do I know? And different ways that you're going to be able to access those things throughout the week.
So it's sustainable. I think that's one thing as child therapists we have in common is we're all so busy. I mean, even to have you guys all in this recording at the same time, I'm still kind of like in awe. But what you're saying is like you're going to teach them, or I guess not even just teach, there's going to be an experiential component, a huge one, to where they actually can do it and then take it back to their daily life. But it's not like a huge commitment. It's like quick and actionable. Oh man, exactly. Cool.
Can I jump in on a little thought here? So as we're talking about, I mean, I know we're talking about what's happening in San Diego, but just like as practical tips, Jen, I just had this like, beautiful thought of, halfway through a day for a play therapist, maybe on their lunch break, to take 5 minutes and to just journal about their morning, different than case notes, but right, like just journaling and like, what did that feel like? What was that like in the room? Is that what you're suggesting as a small like way that we could implement this?
Yeah, totally. Set a timer for 5 minutes and just write down whatever is going on, whatever is in your thoughts in that moment, or what happened earlier in the morning, and get it out. Like, therapists are known to be overthinkers. We spend a lot of time ruminating about what we didn't do well in a session, or what was frustrating about a child that was there, or the huge mess, or the transitions, or whatever is going on. And being able to give that place a space in your journal really helps you to look at it from a different perspective and really think about how you can use that information to help you, rather than to keep carrying it around with you throughout the day.
Oh, that's so good. I think about what you guys named it too, anchoring in the storm. I'm just kind of picturing that metaphor, and it really does feel like we're in a storm. Gosh, I can feel it in my body. Some days it feels like a storm, and it feels like waves are crashing around us. You see boats sloshing around. And it's like, okay. And I think about an anchor and being able to, like Lisa, you said, journal about your morning. That could kind of process it and put it to where you can then move forward. Oh, it's so good.
And
All right.
Claire's going to talk about that metaphor that we're using of anchoring in the storm and the boats being sloshed around, like all of those things. That's part of the experience too, is really leaning into that metaphor.
Yeah. Oh, San Diego too is beautiful. I've been to the zoo there before. It's gorgeous. It's so pretty. All right,
Well, and I
Claire.
think like so much of this, of being in the storm for us as therapists, I mean, really what we're talking about is vicarious trauma.
Mm,
And we have like that's a piece of self-care that we sometimes forget that we need to acknowledge and honor
oh my
in the
gosh,
work
yes.
that we do, because so much of what we're doing, and especially the last 2 years that we've been doing this, is like we're like holding all the stories in the worlds of the clients that we see and the communities that we work in,
Mhm.
while juggling and trying to balance our own stories and our own families and our own children, let alone ourselves, and navigating through all of this. And I think a big part of self-care is learning how to not to first of all, I guess, recognize,
Mhm.
but then honor those parts that are being battered, and honor those parts that are in the midst of the storm and barely hanging on, and not trying to pretend that you have it all together all the time. Because
Mm.
the reality is that we don't. And so part of self-care too is sometimes is finding words to the unspeakable, and I think that
Ooh.
that's where we bring in that right brain element, where we're
Mhm.
doing more of the quiet, expressive piece of things. Because
Mm.
what we know, I mean, just, going back to that neuroscience, is when we can access the creative parts of our
Mhm.
brain, it's also tied in and resides in our limbic system,
Mhm.
which then can open up a safe way to access that instead of getting flooded, which is why when you can create a mandala or do a sand tray or
Yeah.
write a poem, you know, using these things that are more, these parts of us that are more creative, sometimes then that can give us a safe way to see the storm that's inside. And
Mm.
then you can make sense of it. And I think that this is where, like these three different ways go hand in hand. And for each person, it's going to be unique of like what makes the most sense for them. But I think that that's that piece where if we're not looking at what's happening on the inside, and we're just constantly like, trying to hold everybody else's stuff and everybody else's stories and put out all the fires, but not taking care of the one that's burning,
Mm.
internally, then I think that that's where we experience burnout and compassion
Yes.
fatigue. And that's what sells you out of the profession that we do,
Mm.
when it's like, it's too big, it's too much, I'm done. And that's what we want to help prevent too, is because I think that there's been way too many, silent warriors throughout all of this. And they're on the cusp of this is too big, too much, I'm done. And, we really want to create a safe haven to come heal from that and explore from that, and give a place where it can be safe to do so.
Oh my gosh, that just brings up so much for me. I'm thinking about like sometimes we're in a storm and we don't even know we're in a storm. And yes, I'm thinking about us practicing that Gestalt play therapy technique in that thrift store in Arkansas. That's popping in my mind. It's unrelated. But during the in COVID, I got to a point where I was like on my way to the office, and of course I was doing virtual sessions, and I couldn't stop crying. I was like, man, I need to pull it together. I got like 8 minutes that I need to be, here present for this client, and then I sought out some therapy. Somatic experiencing. My nose is stopped up today. Sorry about that. But I had like in the course of the session, I had the worst part images from years of my EMDR therapy sessions that I had never even, like, I didn't even remember that they were in there. And it just flooded me. And I had all this emotion. I was in a storm that I didn't know I was in a storm. And I think it's important for clinicians to realize that we may slowly creep up into this state to where we're so activated and it feels like that's just kind of normal, quote unquote. But you don't have to carry around all that. So I'm thinking about like your retreat in San Diego, the importance of just kind of giving yourself permission to take care of yourself. Not only like for you, I think sometimes it's people think of stuff like that as a luxury. I think of it as a necessity. I remember I was like a school counselor. You talked about burnout. There was a certain point in the year where I would look at a kid, and this sounds like it sounds so difficult. I would look at a child, and at the beginning of the year, I'm like, oh my gosh, what a sweet kid. And then later on in the year, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we got an IEP meeting at 3:30 and I don't even have the paperwork done. I didn't see the kid anymore. And that's when you know that things start to change, that you're kind of slipping towards like this is I'm not getting the passion and the meaning out of it. So stuff like this, I feel like I think it's like drinking water before you're thirsty. It's important to do it before you absolutely need it. I remember looking at the preschool teacher thinking, maybe I'll just be a preschool teacher. I want to read some books.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I love what you just said about that drinking water before you're thirsty. And can I just say I had a similar moment where I was bawling in the parking lot during the pandemic. Was during a time that I was actually listening to Lisa's podcast where she was talking to Claire about us all being in the same boat but not being in the same storm. And Claire said, how are you doing really? And I just started crying in the car. Like, oh, I'm not doing well at all. I'm a mess. And I felt Claire reaching through that podcast going, I'm here. Right. And I want to extend that experience to other people to be able to go, we've all been there. We've all been bawling in the bathroom, in the parking lot, in the office, somewhere. And the way that we get through it is together. Right. That's why we have to come together to do this, is because it's the people that we have relationships with that help us to regulate when we feel like there's nothing else. We've got nothing left. And these are the like pros of the pros, right? You don't get any better regulators than Claire and Lisa.
And you, yeah, for real. Oh my God, you got like tears in my eyes. I'm thinking about co-regulation. I know, it's beautiful. And I'm like,
it made me tear up. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
It happened. It really.
That with the co-regulation, like we literally come into this world like we have to have another human's presence or we're not going to survive. And the thought of like people coming together in San Diego, like the magnitude of what that's going to do to be able to kind of I think about imagery as like mission statement of like end or reduce human suffering or something like that. That has a capacity to reduce human suffering because you're not just helping that one person, but together, the being together and you listening to them. And then you're in how many other people were crying? I was crying. That's beautiful. It's regulatory. And I think if we're together, we have so much more healing capacity than we do alone. Well, we are almost out of time, but I want to make sure that people know where to go to not only find out about the retreat and to be able to register for it. It's in February of 2022. And if you're listening to this recording after the fact, like where can they go to see future events? So if I could get you guys just to pipe in and any links or any anything will be listed in the show notes as well. But if you could say it verbally for those that are driving, that'd be great.
Sure. Registration is on my website. So that's JenTaylorPlayTherapy.com. And that's Jen with one N, Jen, TaylorPlayTherapy.com. You can go there to register. And by the way, when you register, you have food included in this event. And we're taking everybody on a San Diego Harbor dinner cruise so that we can really just like relaxed, feel the ocean, and really just enjoy each other's company. So you can go to my website to register, and you can go there as well for additional events if it's after the fact, things that we might be doing after San Diego. You never know where we'll go next.
Man, that sounds amazing. So you're going on a boat ride too? Oh my gosh. Doesn't get any better, and there's food. Yeah,
Oh,
you
God,
got,
when
Bedtime,
that's
it's all
it's
lit up.
time.
So
Right, we do
beautiful.
it all.
you got the whole nervous system. I think about the importance of like nature, just to do a little shout
Yeah.
out for Janet Courtney's book on nature-based play therapy is incredible. But integrating nature in there, the co-regulation and the food together. Oh, that's amazing. So on your website, I'll have that linked. And anything else that's important to say before we finish up our talk?
I think just figuring out what you need is the most important thing, and then honoring that part. And so sometimes it's a pedicure, sometimes it's a cup of coffee all by yourself, sometimes it's calling a friend, and sometimes it's just finding quietness, but not loneliness.
Ooh.
And so I think seek out for connection as you need it and where you can find it.
Yeah. Oh gosh, just so good. The connection. I literally just bought some Beatles records, and I was like, how many times did they sing about loneliness? Like all the lonely people. I was like, oh my gosh, it's incredible. And I'm thinking about like even at the APT conference that just happened, which was amazing. I got to see you guys in person, which was incredible. I hadn't met any of you either, any of you three in person. I don't even know if I said that right, but Claire, you invited, I think about you invited my daughter and I out with your daughter to the thrift store, and I had the best time. I truly, I don't even like thrift stores, just to be honest. And it was so fun. It was amazing. We were like practicing that Gestalt play therapy technique, and you like picked out one of the things, this little peanut farmer, and you're allergic to peanuts. And you're like, I am the peanut farmer, Sam. We tried to take it home. I bought it, but it didn't fit in the luggage. So Sam had to be left at the Marriott.
Okay,
But
you know you're a therapist when you go to the thrift store and you turn the shopping into
oh my God, it was incredible. It's actually, it's in our play therapy community Facebook group. And she was also, she did the projection on the, my nose stopped up, the Wonder Woman cup. So she was Sam, and then she was a Wonder Woman cup. I was like, girl, I thought I liked you before. Oh my gosh, you're just amazing.
You think Claire's fun in a thrift store? Imagine how much fun she's going to be on a boat.
On a boat in San Diego with you guys, with some food.
With some food, right? It's really, I mean, it's going to be just really a lot of fun.
That's the power of co-regulation. I love that you guys are doing
that.
And again, it is called Anchoring in the Storm, using community and connection to reflect, connect, and build. Well, thank you so much for listening, you guys. You can find the play notes at playtherapycommunity.com. And until next time, take care. Bye.